Alright, g'day, I'm Brenton, and today we're going to have a yak to Randall Wilson. He's quite a prolific artist, and we're just going to discuss his career. So, thanks for coming, Randall.
No worries, mate. Pleasure.
Alright, so you were in the Navy for a while?
I was in the Navy, yeah. Australian Navy. Served on Hobart DDGs as a radar operator.
Yep.
Spent 8 years in the Navy.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
And then, so how did you get your start in artwork, painting?
In artwork, now that's a different kettle of fish.
Right.
Artwork, I was from a very young age.
Yeah.
My father, Ken, he worked for John Sands Card and Games Company.
Yep.
So I used to open up the cards and it was great drawing paper.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have a telly until 1967, I think, and 1965 or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of drawing, yeah.
Yep.
And you know, that led to modelling.
Yep.
So that's where my ability to draw comes from.
So
right back, you know.
So you started drawing and then got into painting fairly young as well?
No, I drew with pencils most of the time. I didn't have an interest in art at all. I just used to draw though.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until well after the Navy that I actually started painting. But,
Okay. What, like when you were a kid, what sort of things did you draw? Were you fascinated by machinery or?
Yeah, I used to, as kids back in the 60s, you know, Airfix kits and frog kits were the go.
Yep.
So, you know, I'd caddy for Dad during the weekend, then rush up to the newsagents, Elizabeth Street newsagents, get my model kit.
Yeah.
Whether it be, it was ships those days, 700 scale.
Yeah, okay.
And I used to look at, I used to love Roy and Ron Huxley's artwork from Airfix.
Yeah.
That's what got me inspired. I used to look at their kits of the ships and think, wow, you know. And I was into ships at a very young age. Dad used to take me down to the docks, Hobart being a working port back in those days. A lot of English ships, P&O, Orient Lines, Orosova, Oronsay, and all those used to come to Hobart, offload passengers, load up apples. And my Uncle David and Uncle Eric, they had fruit orchards up north. So a lot of their stuff, you know, got sent over to the UK. But Dad used to take me down to the ships all the time. He used to love it.
Yep.
In fact, my youngest memory, I think I was about 5 or 6 maybe, and I can still smell and picture it today. I was hanging on to Dad's hand and it was Victoria Pier and HMS Melbourne was in, and I can still smell today the diesel fumes, aviation gas, avgas.
Yep.
Still smell it, believe it or not.
Yeah, right.
You know, and the noise, the hum of the ventilators, and I stood there for hours apparently. I was in awe. So yeah, very young, I had ambitions to join the Navy.
Yep. And then continued your artwork, and then, so what was your first subject when you started oil painting?
My first painting ever, which I'll show you later on, was a portrait of Mum and Dad.
Right, okay.
I own that, so now Mum and Dad have passed away, but my first warship was the Bismarck. Roy Hakim owns that.
Yep.
I got interested I wanted to become an artist from a very young age. When I got out, in the Navy days, I didn't have an inkling of doing artwork. I used to do the fancy artwork on board the ship, you know, the pennant numbers, that sort of thing. I'll hang off the bow on a plank and in Sydney Harbour and do the numbers, whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't have an interest at all back then. I was too young, you know, like into drinking, you know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got out of the Navy that a conscious decision was made up here that, I want to be an artist. So to do that, I did go to art school briefly, but I had to travel from Frankston to Paran Art School. And I couldn't be bothered with that, you know, like it just became too much of a nightmare. So I'm self-taught, so to teach myself, I did that during the day, which meant getting a job at night time. So in the very early days, very late 70s, I opened up the first reggae bar in Melbourne. Frankston, behind the Pancake Parlour, called Club 448. Very cool bar for its day, very cool.
What is it now?
Well, it's the building, Shame, great shame to Frankston. Shame, shame, shame on you, Frankston. The building has been torn down. However, they did get me a few years back. They got me down to Frankston because I did a mural in the Pancake Parlour, and my club was behind, adjoining the same building. Philip Malcolm used to own Pancakes along with two others that I can't remember, and the tavern that was out the back. Club 448 was upstairs, but I did this wonderful mural in the Pancake Parlour. Alice in Wonderland sort of stuff.
Okay.
But very, I don't know if I can say this, drug orientated.
Yeah.
Beautiful mural, and Frankston Council got me back to officially photograph. The place had been ransacked, but the mural was in perfect condition, and they wanted to photograph it before the building got ripped down. So they got me back.
Right. Okay.
And so now I've forgotten what the question was.
Well, so you started painting, then how did you get the job with Trumpeter? Like what
Trumpeter's
sort of
a long
exposure
story.
did you get?
Getting the job with Trumpeter, got to go further back than that. As I said to you guys before, I went over to the States with Graham Malcolm, a good mate of mine. We took a couple of paintings and prints over. There at the Oshkosh Air Show, which is awesome. There we met Ed Kaminsky. He runs the US Military Gallery, him and his wife. So he bought the painting that we took over, which I can't remember what it was now, and the prints that we took over. And then David Higgins from Cranston Fine Art. At the time, Cranston Fine Art were the largest print house gallery in Europe, and probably still are. They're huge. And I got back from the States, and he bought everything off me, flew me over, printed everything. For 10 years I'd go over there and do all the signings, and that's what got my name around, around the planet, but I was still learning, I look back at the artwork that I was doing for David, and I'm not embarrassed, some of it's good, some of it's not, where I am today is a different kettle of fish, but that was the start of things. So from there, Trumpeter got hold of me through Facebook. I was on social media quite young when it first started. I've always been on social media. It's a great platform. And so Trumpeter got hold of me, Jackson Scholl.
Okay.
So and
you never looked back. You made it.
Well, have I made it? No, I haven't made it. I'm always hustling for $1. When you're not hustling for $1 and you've got to use the money, that's when you made it. I'll never make it. My kids might do better out of my artwork than what I will.
Okay.
But I get great enjoyment walking into a hobby shop and seeing my artwork on box top kits, taking me back to when I was a kid and I used to look at Roy and Ron Huxley's work. So it's a great thrill. I mean, I sold work to Paul Little, who used to own Toll, Steven Spielberg commissioned the paintings, Star Wars painting. But I get a bigger thrill seeing it on the box tops, Do
people recognise you in the hobby shops when you go in?
Oh, I don't know about that. I was in Vietnam last trip, and the hobby shop wanted me to sign all their plastic model kits there. So I had to sign all their ship kits. Whether that's making it or not, I don't know. But I love doing the box top art. So
And what's your favourite ship painting?
Ships. I don't have a favourite. I used to. I'll show you later. My favourite painting. I don't have favourites. I don't have favourites. But I'll show you one that's not box top art. It's the USS Enterprise head on. It's an in-your-face, what I call lounge room art. During their global tour in the 60s, but it's got Spock, McCoy, James T. Kirk on the bow. But I do have favourites. My American client, I won't name him, great guy. I've done some wonderful work. The Tirpitz I did for him. I've done some very good paintings for him. In terms of the box art painting's slightly different than doing something for a private commission.
How far in advance does Trumpeter get in touch with you with what they want?
They've been good recently. They give me enough time. Sometimes it hasn't been. It's been a real rush job, but I'm fortunate that I can be up at 5 and work till the wee hours and have it done.
So it's fairly late in the process. Like
Yeah, it is
For
rough,
Trumpeter,
yeah.
they've got the kit ready and complete, just about ready to release.
I couldn't
and
say
then they
that.
contact
I know
you.
they're well. Obviously, they're getting close to sales. You know,
Yeah.
when they ordered the box art. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's packaging. You
Yeah.
know, so I assume the kit's already done. I get their CAD drawings,
Yeah.
CAD pictures, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's not far down the way.
Do you have much input in the design of the kit itself? For
No.
The Trumpeter? No.
If it was up to me, maybe a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
No, I have no input whatsoever.
Right.
I just do the box art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your materials? Are you fussy with brushes and paints and
I'm
things
not
like that?
fussy.
Do you have a favourite brand or anything?
No, I'm not fussy because I'm always bucking for a dollar.
Yeah.
So I'm very conscious of how I spend my money.
Yeah.
I don't buy expensive brushes.
Yeah.
I think it's crap.
Yeah.
I buy cheap brushes. They're great brushes, modelling brushes, Teflon, disposable, 3 paintings, 4 paintings, and throw them away.
Yep.
$3, $4. I don't believe in wasting money on $100 brushes because you're doing the same thing. You'll only get 4 or 5 paintings and throw them away. It's bullshit.
Mm.
But I do get good oils. You know, Winsor Newton, Rowney.
Yep.
Recently, recently I've been getting Chinese oils. I wouldn't use them on top of the painting. I use them particularly with ship work, doing the Ocean's Old base coat with the cheaper. When I say cheaper, they're cheap. They're much cheaper. They're still okay. They're fine.
Yep.
But I'll do the base coats with those as opposed to Winsor Newton, Rowney. I mean, some of the oil paints you're paying, you know, for a 150 ml tube, you're paying, you know, $110.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I guess lately I'm conscious of that.
And what do you keep? You only have a select range of colours, and you just mix what you need from those.
Yeah,
or-
yeah. I mean, when I win Tats Lotto, I'll lash out at the Melbourne Art Supplies, and I'll buy, you know, several $1,000s worth of oils just to be able to look at them in the studio.
Yep.
And I'll have a proper studio too.
Do you spend a lot of time like researching
Nope.
correct colour schemes and
Nope.
things like that? No.
No, time's money.
Yep. Okay.
I'm on deadlines most of the time.
Yep.
It's different when private commissions.
Yep.
They're paying top dollar, so yeah, I'll do the research for them, and they provide a lot of research. But in terms of box art, I don't do a lot of research.
Yep.
I'm familiar with most ships.
Yep.
When I say familiar, that's a pretty big box.
Yeah.
Inside that box, there'll be certain things that I'm not familiar with, which I have to research.
Okay.
But that's the beauty of Instagram, Facebook, particularly Facebook. You have lots of ship enthusiasts. I'm not talking modelers, but ship enthusiasts. I've just got to punch in a question, and within minutes I'll have an answer that I assume is 90% correct.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's
I haven't bought a book
resources.
in 30 years.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah. So sometimes you'll get a subject matter that does require research. Like I think I did Titanic and the sister ships recently,
Yeah.
and they required a bit of research. You know. No, it's not a warship. I'm not familiar with it. You know.
You also do work for Hobby Boss and a few other brands.
Well, Hobby Boss is trumpeter.
Yeah.
I love kits as trumpeter.
Merit.
Yeah, Merit, Pit Road, Monochrome.
Yep.
You know. Yeah.
So, like, you also build a lot of models. Do you think scale modelling is another form of art?
I do build a lot.
believe
Of
it's
I
a-
don't build as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful sport. It's
What
a
do you-
beautiful artwork.
What do you prefer, painting or building models?
That's a tough call. Once I get into my booze and everything like that, and I get into the oils, Valvoline, GTRX, all of that, I get into it.
Yeah.
But modelling, I love. I always have from a kid. It'll never leave you. You know, you can put it down for a couple of years, like I did in the Navy, but picked it up pretty quickly. But they both feed off each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a model occasion.
Mm.
Otherwise, I go nutty.
Yeah.
If I spend more than a week away from the canvas, I go nutty.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So they feed off each other.
Yeah.
But time's money. I've got bills to pay, so when the artwork comes, I've got to put everything down and
Yeah. Mm.
yeah.
So what are you working on at the moment?
What, paintings or models?
Yeah. Paintings.
Paintings.
Yeah.
Wow. I just finished this one for myself.
Yeah.
it's not too often I do a painting for myself. The last one I did was the Enterprise, which I'll show you.
Yep.
That was about 25, 30 years ago. So this is an opportunity, but then I did that for myself. But then a good friend of mine, he's the oldest serving sailor in the Royal Australian Navy, Marty Grogan, Warrant Officer Marty Grogan. I think he was 72 when he retired from the Navy. I did a beautiful portrait of him at when he retired, and on the same painting, I'll show you the picture of it later, I did him as a junior recruit. So it's him in his 70s and when he was 17 with their arms around each other. But his son, Darren, is Rear Admiral Darren Grogan, right? Now, he was the naval attaché in Washington up until recently.
Okay.
Now, while he was over there, he came in contact with Newport News. These are the companies that build these mothers. And he's going to be able to do something with this painting.
Okay.
But I need to get him some prints. He's now, never before has there been an Australian in command of a US Navy, right? So Marty Grogan, not Marty, Darren,
Yep.
Rear Admiral, is second in command of the US Pacific Fleet, based in Hawaii.
Yep. Okay.
So great guy. He's bought about 14 paintings off me, but fantastic. He's on Facebook. He's one of these, like IT here. He's one of these. Look at me! His photos everywhere of, you know, like, great guy. But yeah, so he reckons he'll be able to sell that on. So, which would be good. That'd be nice sitting in Newport News. But we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's not too often I get to do what I like. I got another line of artwork that I really want to do, which I spoke to Kawa about. You know, she touched on it slightly, and that's hot girls on scooters in Vietnam. You know, but anime style.
Yeah.
You know, and I could do that. I took some great alley. You ever been to Vietnam?
No.
Mate, they got these freaky alleyways with the wiring, like they're like tentacles everywhere.
Yep.
Oodles of telephone and internet cables, and I don't know how it works. It works.
Yeah.
But and great cafes and real old school French. The architecture is beautiful over there, and they have a great scooter culture. Scooters with eyelids on their headlights, and everyone has bunny ears on their helmets, and it's a great culture. And I took heaps of photos of scooters, old scooters, Vespas, new scooters. You know, the V, one of the fastest companies over there is VinFast. They produce electric cars, very cool electric scooters.
Yep.
But as in terms of artwork, as a sellable poster, it would sell very well. So I do have something cooking, but I'm talking about like steampunk style.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, not scooters on the ground, scooters airborne. You know, like
I'm sure people love.
You know, with the takeaway out of what was the movie Seventh. Anyway, memory failure.
Well, how do you go? Like, is it difficult, say, going from painting a ship to then doing a portrait, or it doesn't matter to you?
I love portraiture work, I really do.
Yeah.
When I'm old and grey, which is another year or so, that's what I want to do. But it's developing a style. I'm a basket case guy. I'm tight, like detail.
Yeah.
I'm a Virgo, so detail.
Yeah.
But I love looking at portraiture work, but I like loose portraiture work.
Yeah.
I watch some of these artists that just slip, slop and slap, and you just look at it and think, damn, that's great.
Ben Quilty?
I wish I could
do
do
Ben
that.
Quilty? Have you ever seen Ben Quilty's work?
No.
He's very impressionistic. Real
I see a lot on
textural
Facebook.
stuff,
There's a lot of artists that are nobodies, but they're fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, and I probably need to drink a bottle of bourbon and relax. And
do you think you branch out in other mediums?
No.
Or you stick with oils?
Too late for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm an oil man,
Yeah.
But if like. I can tell you now, if I was in my 20s, I'd be right into this digital stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the future.
Yeah.
I'd like to give it a bash, to be honest, but I'm too lazy to learn.
Well, I suppose
I stick with what I got.
You couldn't take what you've done and just play around with it digitally and see what
I don't
you come
know.
up with.
I don't
Sure
know.
you
I'd
do
need
it,
a
'cause you
digital
scan
artist
it
to
anyway.
tell me that you can.
I think you can.
I don't. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sort of overly confident on computers. I mean, I know enough.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered learning things anymore.
So we're going to see you go out into some impressionistic phase.
No, not impressionistic.
Or,
You've got to be able to
abstract?
look. No, I got no time for abstract. You know, they're people that can't paint.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get lambasted for saying that. They'll be jumping through the camera lens.
It's an excuse for...
my view about abstract painting is they can't paint.
I think, a lot of people, when you've got, say, a 5-year-old and they say, oh, my kid's such a beautiful artist and it's abstract nonsense they've done with their crayons, they call it art. I think it's garbage. But I think if, say, Da Vinci had to branch out into something more abstract, you'd at least appreciate it because you know darn well he paid his dues and could actually paint.
Who's Da Vinci?
Yeah, there you go. I think that's the difference. I think you may not like it, but
you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
So, but as I said, if I was young, in my 20s, I wouldn't be living in this country. I'd be in Vietnam and I'd be doing digital work. So
yeah. How much do you spend more time researching a subject if you're building a scale model as opposed to painting it?
No, I get too keen. I just want to build the mother.
Okay.
I'm not a nut and bolt counter, like I build for fun, for me, not for the public. I'll occasionally change a few things, do a few things, which I'll show you later, but I build just for the pure pleasure of it.
Do you prefer building from kits or scratch building?
I love scratch building.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. How do you go about
love
sourcing?
Scratch building.
How do you go about sourcing plans and things?
Draw them up myself.
Right.
I did the model of Long Beach.
Yep.
Which to the viewers, if you go on the page into, I think it's under Randall Wilson Navart, and go into albums, you'll see the whole process. But I love scratch building. Yep. Scratch building comes about from, damn, they don't have a kit available of this, But scratch building's fun, and especially nowadays that you've got so much aftermarket material available to you. 3D printing, photo etching, plastics, sheet plastics you can go and buy, and it's cheap, and I mean it's great.
And when you're painting a scale model, because you work with oils a lot, what do you prefer when you're working on a model? Like, do you airbrush with acrylics or lacquers? What do you use?
Well, there's so much choice nowadays, like with everything. There's just too much choice.
Yeah.
And there's way too much choice.
Mm.
And most of these paints that come out now are crap.
Yeah.
In terms of water-based, a lot of them are crap. I'm not going to name names, but the molecular structure of them is weakened. The pigmentation is weak. To me, and I'm not a professional modeler, but in my opinion, you cannot beat Guns and Tamiya. Yeah. When they built those paints, they did a lot of research. Tamiya's fantastic. The liquid Tamiya glue doesn't ruffle its feathers. Same with Guns.
Yeah.
They're extremely workable both with airbrush and brush.
Yeah.
Watered down, they don't lose their pigments, when you thin them out.
Mm. Yeah.
They're wonderful on brushes for certain effects.
Yeah.
Beautiful on airbrushing. So I don't go into this other water-based stuff. I have used True Colour on some of my naval models, and they're very good actually. The pigmentations are very strong.
Mm.
I still have trouble with an airbrush with them.
Yeah.
But for certain things.
Have you ever incorporated airbrushing into?
Never.
No, never. Strictly with a brush.
Strictly brush.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, well, it's not cheating. It's I mean, what are you going to use an airbrush for? Getting smoke, mist. That's the trick about oil paintings. When you're painting, you've got to learn how to create a fog or a mist or spray from a wave.
Yeah.
You don't, as I would say, cheat by using an airbrush, and an airbrush won't give you the effect anyway. It's all got to be done in the wet when the paints are wet.
Yeah.
And that's a process. You've got to think ahead.
Is it daunting? Like, say this is a huge painting. Like, there's a lot of work in that. Like, is it daunting from the start to go, oh my god, I've got to paint, I've got to finish this?
Not if you plan it right in your head. This has been fermenting in my head for quite a number of years. I got some great photos. I got to tell you about these mothers because no one believes me. But anyway, from the datum line, so the boot topping, on it, whether it's the Enterprise, Nimitz class, Gerald R. Ford, from the datum line to the flight deck's 101 feet.
Yep.
On an Nimitz class, the anchors are set at 67 feet above the datum line. The US Navy rates their ships at 35 knots plus. They'll never tell you what they really do.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you now, I've operated we operated as a rescue destroyer for the Enterprise back in Rimpak. Not Rimpak. What's the Australian? Kangaroo 1.
Okay.
Now, we couldn't keep up with the Enterprise, right? So when you see photos of the ship and the bow wave is below the anchor line, you know it's doing about 35 to 37 knots.
Okay.
Right? When it's above the anchor, 70 feet, it's doing in excess of 45 knots.
Yeah.
And it's pushing thousands of tons of water, literally pushing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phenomenal speeds.
Yeah.
An example, I think it was the it wasn't the Truman, Carl Vinson, Gulf War 1, she departed Norfolk Naval Base. 3 days and 1 night later she was in the Red Sea operating.
That's right.
No unescorted, no ship could keep up with her. They were surfing in the Med when
Yeah.
she went through.
Yeah.
So if you work out the distance, her mean average speed was 46.5 knots.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they hump,
Yeah.
they hump.
Yeah.
But, planning a painting, like I mentally, when I'm doing one painting, I'm already thinking about the next. So I've been thinking about this painting for a long time, and it's very much like building a model.
Yeah.
Start with the background and you work forward. Painting the ship, you start at one end and you visualize it like it's a model.
Yep.
Painting the TACAN bulb or the elevator sponsons, you can see the curvature and you understand, what it's like.
But how many, do you have a lot of photographic references?
Yeah, heaps of.
Especially something this modern, it'd be pretty easy to get photos.
Yeah, there's some great reference. Ray Bean, American photographer, he
Yep.
spends most of his life photographing carriers. He's got some wonderful photographs.
Yeah.
But, it's all about brush strokes as well, like the hull. You don't brush the hull this way when you're painting. You don't do it this way because it's not going that way. It's downwards.
Yeah.
The hull is down and it starts taking shape. These brush strokes go this way, not that way, this way.
Yeah.
And then that way. So you've got to keep in mind the 3D effect and the real thing, the shape of it.
There's a lot of blending in there. That'd be wet on wet.
Yeah,
Is
wet
that
on
correct?
wet. It's
Yeah.
important to blend them. You have to understand what what you're doing. So you need to, at a certain stage of the oil paint, you need to blend them when they're still wet.
Yeah.
Other times you have to let them get tacky, depending on the effect you want. So
And you work dark to light typically?
no,
or
not at all. No.
Just depends on...
I just keep building it up like a model, mate.
Yep.
You paint it basic colour. I did all that basic grey, let that dry, that's the base coat.
Yep.
Then start painting it. Then add the weathering effect.
Yep.
Dry brush, wet brush,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep. Are you fussed on will they use a haze grey, the US Navy?
Yeah,
Like
US Navy, I mix up my own. I always
Yeah.
mix my own paints,
Yeah.
I could go back to any painting, even done 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I could tell you exactly what oil paints I used.
Yep.
I could look at the colour, if there was any damage, I know up here,
Yeah.
know exactly how to repair it.
Do you find it, do you prefer, say, more modern subjects as opposed to older ships? Or is it just case by
Modern
case?
subjects, they're like, it's like homogenised pasteurised milk nowadays. I mean, warships aren't looking like warships, they look like slab-sided bloody affairs, Russians, now there's a good looking warship, the Russians, like warships, mate, this so-called stealth crap,
Yeah.
bollocks.
Yeah.
Any
There's
weapon
nothing to 'em,
system you've got
right?
enough to deal with, should deal with it. You don't need to be stealth. You'll never be stealth.
Yeah.
Never, ever.
Yeah.
So why worry about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I much prefer like these older designs. I think there's a lot more to them. I think they're more visually.
Well, you're
appealing. Like, there's
using-
much more going on.
You're
like
using Vickers hardened steel,
Yeah, yeah,
rolled armour, not this plastic ceramics,
It's
No, you're not allowed to say.
Okay. Yep. But so you'd much prefer painting a? say, a
No, I like
local-
painting the modern stuff as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain modern ships. I love Russian stuff, as I said. Puerto Veliki and
Yeah.
the Nakamod's coming out soon. She's been retrograded and with the Zircon missiles and
What's a Nakamov? What's that? Heavy
well,
cruiser?
it's a heavy nuclear rocket missile carrier.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the Kirov class.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's due out soon. awesome ships, beautiful ships. I mean, a real warship.
Yeah.
You know, very Yamato-ish looking actually. If you take a step back and look at them, they've got this beautiful line work. You know, into a huge pagoda. You know, like I think it's like cars, mate. All cars look the same nowadays. All bloody warships look. I'm sure they come out of the same design bureau. I mean, you know, that's why I like Russian stuff, mate, because they look like warships for a start. Whoa!
So,
you know,
so your favourite ship designs are that of the Russians? Like,
yeah. I mean, you know, like if you want to get really technical, I mean, I was in the Navy, right?
Yeah.
Now I can tell you now that the Russian shipbuilding industry is far more advanced than West.
Yeah.
And all of these counters are going to laugh at me, but I can tell you now, they were the first to use vertical launch. They were the first with 3D radars. They were the first with acoustic streamlined hulls in terms of vortices and shapes of hull. If you look at it underneath a Russian warship, the back where the props are, they have very intricate thrusting abilities. You know, they've never used aluminium.
Yeah. Okay.
They've always used high tensile steel. They're extremely wide ships, which allows for more stability and a shallower draft.
Yep.
They were the first to employ COG, gas turbines, steam propulsion.
Yep.
Their torpedoes are beyond the West. I mean, the Shalika is a 300-mile-an-hour torpedo.
Yeah.
You know, underwater.
Yep.
The thrust comes out the nose and is, you know, so many things that the Russians have built that are way ahead. I mean, you know, like Gatling guns. I mean, the Russians have had those as standard weapons since 1962.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, in the 70s, we thought, oh, we'll get these Gatlings. You know? And the other thing interesting about Russian warships, I can remember this from my Navy days, because we, coming out of the Red Sea, we circled one Russian ship. I can't remember which one. I had to draw it for the skipper. But, you know, I was in radar, so I had a classification 6, which is the highest.
Okay.
So I worked in CIC, Combat Information Center, right? And the Russian ships always had double radar systems, 2 radar systems, fairly distanced away from each other. And we were always told, oh, it's because they're valve operated and they're not as good as ours, we're digital.
Yeah.
Well, valves, as you know, don't get affected by electromagnetic pulse. The reason why they have double radar systems, if one gets shot up, you're not totally blinded.
Yeah.
You've got another one of the same band, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why there's always double radars, which you're starting to see in Western navies now. You're starting to see a double up of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, I just like Russian naval ships. You know. Yeah.
I've got a friend he's older now, but he was in the Russian Navy. He was a submariner, and he was telling me when they used to submerge, they put a string between the bulkheads, between the doors, and they'd watch it as the pressure built on the hull. They'd watch it shrink.
I had a bar, my last bar, the flyby bar. True story. I'll show you the hat. I had this Russian lady would frequent the bar, and then one night she came in with this very handsome guy, big guy, Russian he was.
Yeah.
And he came up to the bar. He couldn't speak a word of English, so his girlfriend was translating. He wanted scotch. The best scotch I had at the time was Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie, Glenmorangie. But anyway, just looking at him, he had a Pierre Cardin suit, Rolex, diamonds on every finger just about. Oozed of money, this guy, oozed of money. I'll cut the story short. Got talking, he was here in Australia for a month. He was a captain of a nuclear SSN, submarine hunter, right? On his next trip back, he brought me back a genuine Russian mink captain's hat,
Cool.
and he wanted to give me his watch, which was issued to the captain and the XO only of Submariner. Beautiful watch. It was too big for my wrist. It was heavy as. It had this blue stone. I can't remember what the stone was. He did say it was a very rare stone. Diamond figures for the. And I didn't accept it.
Yep.
And by then I'd had some decent scotch, you know, like, you know, he used to tip everyone $100, $200, whatever, but I had decent scotch. He'd drink on the house for free, mate, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so he brought back this genuine mink hat, which I'll show you later, and a few other things.
So back to painting, like when you're looking at other people's work, like other people's maritime art, what do you look for? What things do you enjoy seeing in artwork And what things do you hate when you're looking at other people's work?
I don't hate anything nowadays at my age. Probably 40 years ago I would have said something, but now I enjoy looking at other people's artwork. I'm not one to criticise.
Do you have some favourite contemporary graphic artists?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Robert Taylor was always my idol.
Yep.
He's passed away now. His son Richard's very good, but Robert had this ability to be able to, mainly aircraft. He did do some lovely ships, but particularly with his aircraft. But if you took away the aircraft, it was always a painting, even if you take the plane out of it.
Yeah.
Most of the artists nowadays tend to focus on too much activity.
Okay.
Going on in the air. There's some great artists out there. Yeah, there is, and I'm not one to judge.
Yeah.
I'm still learning, so who am I to judge,
Same goes for when you're looking at people's scale model work. Like, what do you like to see? What interests you when you're looking at scale models?
Well, there's nothing particular about a model. I just visually, if I look at it and think, hell yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't go counting nuts and bolts.
Yeah. What's your plan next? What's your plan for your next scratch build?
Wow, the plan.
If you have one.
I tell you, folks, I'm on a time limit now. I'm about to expire over the years. I don't know what I've got left in me. I've had a few scares, but I've got Poita Veliki 200 scale is what I want to do. I've got the paper kit from Poland, and the idea is to transfer all of that onto sheet plastic. The 3D printing that's available now is just unbelievable. So, weapon systems, radars, all that is readily available. It'd be Poita Veliki, and I'd like to do my old girl, Hobart. I did start a 1/72nd scale one, but that was a long time ago, and my modelling's changed. But I'd like to do maybe Hobart.
Do you have trumpeters here?
No, I got no. Do I have? If I had trumpeters here,
this is what I want.
I'd be on the phone, and Kawasaki here would be translating for me every day. I don't have their ear. No, they don't listen to me, mate.
Okay. What do you know any of the process there? Like, what influences their decisions when they decide we're going to
I don't know what influence. It's a mystery to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I reckon it's put the hand in the teapot and pull out.
Comes out.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
I'd love to go over there.
Yeah.
I would like to. I will one day go over there and see the whole process of A to B.
Yeah.
C, D, and E.
Yeah. Do they send you preview kits and things like that?
No. Come on.
Yeah, I thought
I'm not on their payroll.
I thought I imagined you'd be consulted on the entire process just because of your knowledge. So.
No. All that goes by the wayside, mate.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I
I put my 2 bobs worth in every now and then. Have an argument with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had arguments with them over paint schemes. I'm not changing it because you think of that. This is how it was back in that year.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Simple.
Do you have particular camo schemes that you love? Say
Shipside grey and underway. Haze grey. Camouflage ships. The problem with camouflage ships in a painting is you've got to be. This is what trumpeter don't understand. Camouflage ships. It's a fine line for me because I've got to do the colours that they want. Otherwise it gets rejected. But in real life, certain colours dissipate in distance. And even in the foreground, certain colours, a hull going through water just gets ripped off. I don't know if you've seen a real hull in water, it just takes off sheets of paint.
Yeah.
And, it's not perfect. We need this perfect.
So they give you pointers as to what, regardless of historical accuracy.
They try and give me pointers, and I'm always open. And I'm willing to change. One painting I did 3 times before they accepted it.
Yeah.
Which was, and they were right. By the time I got to the 3rd one, it was a bloody good painting.
Yeah.
But at other times they're totally wrong.
Yeah.
Totally wrong. They just don't understand.
So,
but that's hey. I'm not bagging trumpeter, mate, because without trumpeter we'd be living in the dark ages of Tamiya.
Yeah. Exactly.
Trumpeter kicked booty. from 1/16 scale. The ships, I mean, Jesus Christ, you know, they made Russian ships, you know. Yay! Hoorah! Hoorah!
So have there been some of the subjects you've done for Trumpeter? Have there been ones that have been just pricks to do?
Yeah,
like every
Titanic.
step of the way?
Titanic.
Yeah.
Titanic and the sisters. Boring.
Yeah. yeah. What, even the Olympic with
Yeah,
the,
boring as hell, mate.
with her dad.
God, no guns, mate. Boring. Boring damn things.
Had a couple of little ones.
Ah, pea-shooters, mate. Boring. Just boring.
And you never got bogged down in it. Or those ones you were saying you had to really.
I had to
get
drag
a lot of
myself
research.
out of bed to get those
Yeah,
done.
okay.
You know,
Yeah.
literally. Drag myself out.
And like if they do several iterations, like a 350 scale, a 700 scale, and a 200 scale, for example, like do they want the same painting for?
I used to do a lot of their 700 scale box art, but I've been all non-void walking around like your pretty boy Floyd, you know, like they're all photoshopped now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, won't be long before I'm gone.
So they're not using the same paint, like they want a different painting for each
Yeah,
style.
yeah, why not? You know, Photoshop's cheap. Nasty, cheap, nasty, cheap, nasty, cheap.
Yeah, quick and easy. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think you said it before. You go to a hobby shop. What do you like looking at?
Box
Box
art.
tops.
Yeah.
You know.
Take that away.
Wow.
If it's a cheap and nasty box art,
Yeah, you ain't going to buy
it
the
doesn't
kit.
say much about the kid.
No,
himself,
that's
does it?
right. That's right.
So, and the hobby shops, I think, more than just a simple transaction. It's an experience for people. Like it's fun. You want to go there, talk about models, and look at cool stuff.
I'll admit it. As a kid, you know, I mean, the biggest toy shop in Hobart at the time was Elizabeth Street News Agency.
Yeah.
And as a kid, we used to go up there on a Saturday morning. We'd even peel off the stickers, price sticker, and put a cheaper one on.
That's why we got no price.
You know, but you know, you'd look at the box arts and
Yeah. You keep the boxes once you've built a kit?
no, I don't
Chuck
throw them out, mate.
Yeah.
No. I got the original.
Yeah.
I don't need the
Yeah,
box. Oh, you know, like everything I do goes digital. You know, it's all scanned. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants a print,
Are you like when you start looking at your own artwork, when you see it time and time again, are you real picky and,
Yep.
and start
Yep.
staring and thinking,
Yep.
what you could have done better?
there's not too many paintings where there's always. I mean, a painting's never finished. You know, I get up in the morning with this, say, right, and you know, get here with my coffee and cigarette, and think, oh shit, I've missed that. You know, I've got to do that. So I'll do it. But you know, you're always looking at something. Like this bit of water still frustrates me.
Yeah.
You know, Nick will criticise. You know, Nick, he'll criticise. He's fresh eyes.
Yeah.
He'll come in and say, no, that's wrong, Randall.
Yeah.
You know, and I need that because when your nose is 12 inches away from the canvas 24/7, you know, 6 days a week, you get lost in it. You know?
Yeah.
So it's good to have a fresh pair of eyes come in, and you know, Nick said, well, that looks like a scratch, you know, and he's right, it does. I've got to do something about it before it gets scanned, you know.
How much planning is there in getting the proportions correct? Like, there's a lot of rough sketching before you
No,
actually put the paint on?
I'm one of these few artists, from what I've been told. I'm fortunate that I have the ability to get perspective right.
Yeah.
Perspective is a difficult thing. I don't draw horizon lines, and I used to in the early days. Yeah, I'd get the string and put horizon lines and vertical, you know, like the triangle system where you can move. It's all by eye now.
Yeah.
You know, my eyes will tell me if there's something wrong. You know, like.
Being oils.
And the best way to look at that is to stand back, and the best way to do that is to take a photo of it, get on the computer,
Yeah.
load up your photo, and you'll immediately see that doesn't look right.
Yeah, flip it upside down.
You know what? No, just because it's compressed, and you know, no, that's got to change. You know, so like I had trouble with this. With this, I had the water actually up here,
Right.
and it was actually looking like the ship was perspectively not right,
Yeah.
and it was giving me the shits.
Yeah.
And I photographed it and sat down and I thought, WTF, you know, like, there's the problem. So what I did was, I got rid of the water way up here and brought it right back down to the boot topping, which tended to visually make it correct.
Balance it out.
So I was happy about that, you know, in relation to Ronnie Reagan, you know, like the perspective. I actually got the string out to test, and yeah, you know, horizon line, blah, 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 bring it down, you know, yeah, all good.
Yeah.
But it was just that visual thing here that upset. it wasn't incorrect as a painting. It wasn't incorrect as in real life as a ship. It wasn't incorrect.
Yeah.
It's just that visually it made it incorrect.
Are you conscious of like proportion?
Yeah.
Like composition.
Yeah,
I mean, like, are you consciously going, all right, I want a third to be water.
No, I
third
just
to be.
I just beam it up and roughly work it out. You know, like, you know, I was going to have a fourth carry in here, but it would have got too much. I was also going to have a couple of aircraft, but what I wanted was I didn't want combat air. I wanted combat air patrol cap aircraft.
Yeah.
But because the Ford is the future,
Yeah.
I wanted drones, fighter drones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was going to do one inverted with the robot giving them the bird, you know. You know, and I wanted to put them up there, but it was too far off in the distance to be of any value.
Yeah.
And if I brought it forward, then it takes your eye away from the subject matter. And you know, Nick agreed, so we left the aircraft out in the end. But I would have loved to have done the drones, because that is the future.
Yeah.
You know, combat air patrol drones, no pilots. You know, just one inverted. You know.
4 ships would be throw it out of dance. You always got to go odd numbers, don't you? You always go 3s.
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
5s for a big balance.
I could still drop another Nimitz over there, and visually it wouldn't alter anything, but
Yeah.
it would be busy. But yeah, just leave it that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm over it. I'm on to the next one.
Yeah.
My head's already left that.
Moved on. Yeah.
So,
There's
yeah.
so much you can
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very impressive. Yeah.
So how we doing?
It's time to wind it up. What do you reckon?
Had enough.
No,
Yeah,
I'm easy.
Whatever. Talk enough about anything else you want to discuss?
No.
No? Okay.
All right then.
Certainly not on
Covered
camera.
all the questions. Covered all the questions that you'd like.
Yeah, I think we're
And then just close out, right?
Close up, yeah.
Just close it out.
all right.
Thank Randall, and you've watched this video brought to you by Haynes Hobbies, eh?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Randall, thanks for your time and discussing your art and everything else. It's been really interesting. So we
Thank
really
you. This,
Appreciate it, mate.
yeah, no, many thanks. This is for posterity, because, as I said in the beginning, I've never ever been interviewed, which I find sad. You know, I mean, as far as I know, I'm the only box top artist in Australia, and so I thank you. I thank you. So when I'm dead and gone, you know, like, damn. Thanks, boss, for coming all the way from Dubai.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.